All right, guys, so we got to talk about Nimrata Haley, a.k.a. Nikki Haley, who has finally dropped out of the GOP primary race, a race that she had absolutely no chance of winning, a race that she should not have entered into, okay, because she promised that she would not run against Trump if Trump ran in 2024, but she broke her promise. And now it seems like she's breaking another one of her promises by refusing to endorse Trump during her dropout speech. Now, I want to react to her speech because her speech here, I think, is very important, okay? The reason why it's very important is because there's now a conversation about what are Nikki Haley supporters going to do, okay? Are they going to support Trump? Are they not going to support Trump? Are they going to vote for Biden? Are they going to sit out? And I want to talk about this because Nikki Haley is essentially making demands of Trump in exchange for her cooperation and endorsement, okay? She's basically saying that, well, I'm not going to help you out with my supporters unless you do what I want you to do, okay? That's basically what she's doing. And it's going to be very interesting to see how Trump reacts to Nikki Haley breaking her promise and withholding her endorsement, or whether or not he even cares enough to come to the negotiating table, so to speak, to get Nikki Haley's support. So without further ado, let's listen to her speech. It's pretty short here, and then I'm going to react to the liberal media coverage of Nikki Haley dropping out.
Good morning. Just over a year ago, I launched my campaign for president. When I began, I said the campaign was grounded in my love for our country. Just last week, my mother, a first-generation immigrant, got to vote for her daughter for president. Only in America. I am filled with the gratitude for the outpouring of support we've received from all across our great country. But the time has now come to suspend my campaign. I said I wanted Americans to have their voices heard. I have done that. I have no regrets. And although I will no longer be a candidate, I will not stop using my voice for the things I believe in. Our national debt will eventually crush our economy. A smaller federal government is not only necessary for our freedom, it is necessary for our survival. The road to socialism is the road to ruin for America. Our Congress is dysfunctional and only getting worse. It is filled with followers, not leaders. Term limits for Washington politicians are needed now more than ever. Our world is on fire because of America's retreat. Standing by our allies in Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan is a moral imperative. But it's also more than that. If we retreat further, there will be more war, not less. As important, while we stand strong for the cause of freedom, we must bind together as Americans. We must turn away from the darkness of hatred and division. I will continue to promote all those values, as is the right of every American. I sought the honor of being your president. But in our great country, being a private citizen is privilege enough in itself. And that's a privilege I very much look forward to enjoying. In all likelihood, Donald Trump will be the Republican nominee when our party convention meets in July. I congratulate him and wish him well. I wish anyone well who would be America's president. Our country is too precious to let our differences divide us. I have always been a conservative Republican and always supported the Republican nominee. But on this question, as she did on so many others, Margaret Thatcher provided some good advice when she said, quote, "Never just follow the crowd. Always make up your own mind." It is now up to Donald Trump to earn the votes of those in our party and beyond it who did not support him. And I hope he does that. At its best, politics is about bringing people into your cause, not turning them away. And our conservative cause badly needs more people. This is now his time for choosing. I end my campaign with the same words I began it, from the book of Joshua. I direct them to all Americans, but especially to so many of the women and girls out there who put their faith in our campaign. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for God will be with you wherever you go. In this campaign, I have seen our country's greatness. From the bottom of my heart, thank you, America. God bless you.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that, okay? Initial reaction to Nikki Haley's speech. I do not get the sense that she's running third party, okay? Now, before this, I thought that Nikki Haley was gunning to run third party because basically, I mean, I didn't know what other reason was she in the race. Now that she gave this speech and she's essentially making demands of Trump, and I'm going to talk about what those demands are, what I think those demands are here in a minute, I get the sense that what she's really trying to do is trying to leverage the results in the primary and the fact that she does have a significant amount of voters who are never Trumpers and Democrats who literally voted for her because they hate Trump, okay? They don't really like her as much as they just hate Trump. She's trying to leverage that for a few reasons here. The number one reason really comes down to policy positions, right? And I think the policy position that Nikki Haley is trying to get Trump to fold on is when it comes to Ukraine and foreign policy, okay? Because that's what Nikki Haley is the most passionate about, is foreign policy, even though I don't think she knows as much about these countries as she seems to be so passionate about them going to war for American interests. But regardless of that, listen to what she said about Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, right? Trump has come out here and basically said that, hey, I'm non-committal when it comes to funding Ukraine, okay? And Nikki Haley, who is a war hawk, I believe that the main difference between her and Trump is foreign policy. Because, I mean, in that speech, she gave the typical Republican stump speech in the sense that she talked about the economy, how, you know, we need to control the debt. I mean, she didn't mention immigration for whatever reason, but she gave the typical kind of Republican stump speech, okay? There are not too many issues domestically that Nikki Haley and Trump really disagree on, to be honest with you, okay? I mean, there's not that much of a difference. So in the grand scheme of things, this is really about foreign policy. I think more specifically, it's about aid for Ukraine. That's why I think it is. I think that if Trump came out here and was very pro-Ukraine, you wouldn't be hearing this speech, right? Because these politicians don't really give a damn about that stuff that they claim about, oh, well, Trump's demeanor and the temperature of the country, blah, blah. They don't care about that, right? That stuff is all the same stuff they said about Trump in 2016, and they all lined up and supported Trump. The only difference now is that we know from a foreign policy perspective that Trump is willing to buck against the establishment, right? When Trump says that, hey, I'm not in support of all these wars and, you know, continuing to be involved in these conflicts, he means it, right? Because that's the way he governed as president. So, again, Nikki Haley, I think what she's trying to do is to get Trump to fold on that, right? I think she wants Trump to compromise on that issue to basically become pro-Ukraine, and I think that's why she's really withholding her endorsement. Also, what she's trying to do as well, too, is that she's trying to revive whatever is left of the old GOP, okay? Because this primary has proven that the new Republican Party is the party of Trump. It is the MAGA party. It is the old Tea Party, but yet most of the base is kind of in that direction now, right? That's where the base is at, okay? It's not the tax cuts and wars George Bush party, which is what Nikki Haley represents and what she is desperately trying to hold on to. Okay, again, mainly when it comes to the war part. Okay, so I think that this has everything to do with Trump's foreign policy. I think it has everything to do with the fact that she's not comfortable with how Trump talks about Putin, Trump's current position when it comes to Ukraine. And I think that she's trying to get Trump to where the establishment is at when it comes to foreign policy. And I think that's the real reason why she's withholding her endorsement. Okay. Because that essentially is the main difference between MAGA and the old tax cuts and wars GOP, right? Because we still want the tax cuts. We still want to reduce spending, even though Republicans never actually do that. Part of the reason why they don't ever actually do that is because of the wars. We still want strong borders. We still want to be tough on crime. We still want to be pro-fossil fuels. I think from a domestic policy perspective, the old neocons and the MAGA party are basically on the same page, except for trade. I would say trade is probably where there is some difference, right? Quite a bit of difference, because, you know, the MAGA party is not for selling out American jobs, manufacturing jobs overseas to countries like China anymore. That's also a big difference as well, too. So, again, foreign policy and trade are probably the two biggest differences. I don't think that Nikki Haley is withholding her endorsement over trade as much as she's withholding her endorsement over foreign policy, a.k.a. wars, okay? So, with that being said, let's continue to react to what CNN has to say about this, and I'm going to chime in on what they have to say.
But one of the things that we heard Nikki Haley saying just a few moments ago, Wolf, was that America needs to stand with Ukraine.
She was very, very strong on the international issues. She said specifically that the U.S. needs to support Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan.
Right.
She went into specifics articulating that. And I also thought, even though she didn't formally endorse Trump, she came pretty close to doing so when she said, the time has now come to suspend my campaign. And as you know, Jeff Zeleny, the word suspend is specific. It's a legal word. It's not end my campaign, suspend my campaign in order to be able to continue to control all those campaign dollars that she raised.
For sure. Suspend is a word that I think in this particular cycle, with all the wild cards, the age of the candidates, the legal cases, and just the fact that she won delegates, she's earned the right to suspend, not end her campaign. So I think that is important. But
well, I mean, her campaign is over. Okay, I don't know what's up with this coat, but her campaign is over. Most people just suspend their campaign, which means that it comes to an end. Now, again, what that means for her campaign funds and what she can do with those campaign funds, I guess there's some legal aspect to that, but her campaign is over. She's not going to be the GOP nominee, okay? Even if Trump happens to get convicted or pulled out of a race somehow, she's not going to get the MAGA vote, right? She's just not going to, okay? So it's over for her. There's no scenario where she can become president of the United States. It's not happening, not in 2024, okay? And the fact that she stayed in the race so long probably means that it's not going to happen in 2028 either. But I think, again, that's part of the play here from Nikki Haley, right? That's part of the trying to come to the negotiating table, because I think she's trying to get back into the good graces of Trump in the sense that she's saying, well, look, if you can meet me in the middle on some of these issues, you can get me back into the fold, then you can get my support, because you need my support in order to win. Now, whether or not Trump actually needs Nikki Haley's support in order to win, well, that is up for debate, because 50% of Nikki Haley's support says that, hey, they're going to vote for Trump, right? So 50% of Nikki Haley's supporters are going to vote for Trump. About 35% of Nikki Haley's supporters are never Trumpers and Democrats. So those are people who are not going to vote for Trump at all, okay, or going to vote for Joe Biden. About 15% of Nikki Haley's voters are undecided when it comes to Trump and Biden, right? So they may just sit out altogether. So really what it comes down to is those undecided voters, right? So basically what Trump has to ask himself is, do I need Nikki Haley in order to get those 15% of her supporters that are undecided? And who are those voters? That's basically what it comes down to, okay? Because 50% of her voters say that, hey, I'm going to vote for Trump, right? So he already has half her supporters, okay? 35% of them are never Trumpers / Democrats, right? They're Biden voters who decided to vote in the open primaries for Nikki Haley. He probably doesn't need to worry about trying to get those people too much, because even if, let's say, for example, he capitulates to Nikki Haley, maybe he makes her VP, which will probably destroy, Trump's support with the MAGA base. Who knows? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Those people are not going to automatically say, hey, well, I'm going to vote for Trump because Nikki Haley's on a ticket. Right? So I think 35% of Nikki Haley's supporters, Trump's not going to be able to get no matter what. It's the 15%. That's who he needs to worry about. Now, a lot of people, the mainstream liberal media, they are characterizing Nikki Haley's voters as moderate, which, again, is fascinating to me, because I think if you actually look at Trump and Nikki Haley from a policy perspective, I think Trump is actually more moderate than Nikki Haley, right, from a policy perspective. But they characterize Trump as far right because Trump is anti-establishment. But if you actually look at it from a policy perspective, I'm pretty sure that Nikki Haley is definitely more extreme than Trump. Like, I don't understand how Nikki Haley is considered a moderate, okay? I think Trump actually really is more of a moderate. That's why he was able to win certain blue states, like the Rust Belt blue states that, again, historically kind of go to Democrats. He won them as a Republican because he actually really is more moderate on some issues. Like, for example, infrastructure. Okay, Trump campaigned hard on new infrastructure spending. Now, it didn't happen because the neocon Republicans, the Mitch McConnells of the world, said, no, I don't want to do that, right? So they let Joe Biden get the W on infrastructure by allowing him to pass an infrastructure bill during the Biden administration. But they didn't let Trump do that, right? It's issues like that where, you know, people come out here and they say, oh, well, Trump's an extremist. I'm like, well, not really if you look at it from a policy perspective. Trump is not an extremist, okay? He's actually more towards the middle than somebody like Nikki Haley. So if we're assuming that 15% of undecided Nikki Haley voters are like the suburban mom that, you know, wants to support women and, you know, is, you know, more Republican leaning, which I believe that they are, right? That's kind of what it seems like to me. If that is the case, then Trump can win those voters. How can Trump win those voters? Well, one, he can pick a woman vice president, okay? Somebody that is somewhat similar to Nikki Haley, but not Nikki Haley, right? In regards to demeanor, okay, and being able to talk about certain issues. Trump's already moderated himself on the issue like abortion. Also, what I think Trump should do as well, too, is talk about issues like crime and education, especially education more, right? Because that is an issue that I will say that Nikki Haley has talked about a lot, which is the fact that we're struggling when it comes to our reading and math scores, okay? Kids are struggling when it comes to education. That is something Trump needs to really talk about a lot, right? He needs to talk about the indoctrination that's being pushed in schools by the left and how this indoctrination and this agenda is against kids learning what they're supposed to learn in school and how that has affected our kids and the ability for them to learn. Why are our kids not performing well in school anymore, right? He should definitely talk about those issues that are close to these suburban moms that he's going to need in order to get them to come out and vote. So I don't think that Trump necessarily needs to come out here and to capitulate to Nikki Haley or needs to fold to Nikki Haley in any way. He just needs to figure out what is the appeal of Nikki Haley to these undecided voters and then just basically campaign on that, right? He needs to shift his rhetoric, shift the focus of his issues to these things that can get the undecided Nikki Haley voter to vote for him, right? So I don't know why Nikki Haley feels like she's in a position where she can make demands, right? Because again, 50% of her base, they already said they'll vote for Trump. So he really just needs to win over 15% of those, okay? And if he actually does win those voters over, there's a good chance that he'll probably get some other crossover voters as well too if he starts focusing more on those issues, okay? I think Trump needs to focus a lot more on education. He needs to focus a lot more on crime. Obviously, he's focused on immigration. That's a big one. I think those three issues are the key, but I think that if he starts to focus more on education, I think that he will win some of those more moderate voters over. And obviously, the economy is a big one as well, too. Again, Trump has an excellent track record when it comes to the economy, so he's already going to win on some of these issues like the economy, immigration. Again, it's just, you know, these, I guess, other issues that he doesn't focus on as much. I think he needs to focus on in order to try to win those people over.
Talking about Trump at the end there, this is now the time for his choosing, putting the burden on former President Donald Trump to win over her supporters. And as we've talked to so many of them over the last several months who have really grown to admire and love her, yes, there are some Democrats who have popped into her crowds to try and be mischief-making, if you will, or to send a message to Donald Trump, but many Republicans as well. There are many Republicans, and I'm thinking back to a conversation I had with one in Charlotte over the weekend, and she told me, I hope Donald Trump treats her kindly and brings her into the fold. And I said, what do you think the chances of that are? And she said, all we can do is hope. So I think now it will be interesting to see how he reacts to this. But she does not have to give an endorsement at this point. I think, I'm not even sure we should talk about that as much. I mean, the reality is few candidates leave the race in an elevated stature. She was the first one in, the last one out, and she has emerged in a far, far stronger position, whatever she may do.
And if I could,
yeah, so look, here's the thing. I don't think that Trump necessarily has to capitulate to her and whatever her demands are. I think, again, her demands are more foreign policy related, more so than anything. But with that being said, I think that Nikki Haley, the fact that she's not endorsing Trump like she promised she would do, again, tells you everything you need to know about her as a person, that her word doesn't mean anything. And that is what I learned the most about Nikki Haley throughout her campaign, is that she's not to be trusted. You can't trust anything that comes out of her mouth, because she's shown that her word doesn't mean anything. Okay, she said she wouldn't run against Trump. She ran against him anyways. Now she's saying that, well, I'm going to withhold my endorsement, right? Even though she pledged to endorse him, right? If you made a pledge, okay, you gave your word, you said, I give my word that I'm going to support Trump if he's a nominee, or whoever the GOP nominee is. If you make that pledge, you make that pledge. And you have to stand by that pledge. At least when it came to Ron DeSantis, you could tell he didn't really want to do it. But he said, look, I made the pledge. I got to stand by it. That's my word, right? So again, you know, what I learned the most about Nikki Haley is that besides, you know, foreign policy and stuff like that, but it's almost like, again, your word doesn't mean anything, right? For as much as you want to talk about Trump's character, what about your character? You've shown that your character is somebody that will just lie to your face, right? You'll promise something and then you'll just break the promise, okay? And it's not like it's a campaign promise where, you know, she says that I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, you know, when I become president or whatever, and she doesn't do it because of Congress or because you need, you know, other people in order to get done. No, it's not one of those type of things. This is something that she has complete control over, right? Nikki Haley had complete control over whether or not she would enter the race. She decided to break her promise anyways, right? Nikki Haley has complete control over her endorsement of Trump, and she decides that, hey, well, I'm going to withhold my endorsement, okay? I'm not going to promise I'm going to endorse you, even though you did promise that you would make the endorsement, because, you know, she wants some type of deal, okay, or negotiation with Trump, when I don't think Trump actually really needs to negotiate with her in order to get the 15% of her supporters that are on the fence. I don't think so. And I don't even think she's in a position to be demanding any type of, you know, position in an administration or maybe a VP spot. That could be what she's holding out for as well, too. She's not in a position to demand any of these things, right? She thinks that she is, but I don't think she really is. I don't think that Trump can actually pick Nikki Haley as a VP and still keep the base of MAGA support, right? Because she stayed in the race for too long, okay? Her staying in the race for so long, making Trump use these campaign funds, has permanently damaged her within the party. I don't think she can run in 2028 and redeem herself. I don't think that she can be VP. I don't think that she can do anything to save her career within the Republican Party because of the decision that she made, because of all the broken promises. But hey, regardless, it'll be interesting to see how Trump handles this moving forward, whether or not he's going to bring Nikki Haley into the fold, and what that might mean. We'll see. I don't think he necessarily has to, but who knows? It's not my campaign. It's his campaign. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.